Go back a little over 2,000 years, and human civilization looked entirely fragmented. You had empires thriving, like the Roman Empire dominating the Mediterranean, but they operated in near total isolation. Trade existed, sure, but it was incredibly local. No one was connecting the East and the West. That geographic gridlock finally broke around 130 BCE, starting with a localized political crisis. China's Han Emperor was facing devastating raids from powerful nomadic tribes in the north, and he urgently needed military allies. To find them, he had to look past the edges of the known world. He sent a diplomat named Zhang Qian deep into the uncharted western frontier. Zhang Qian didn't come back with an army. Instead, after surviving capture and years in prison, he returned with something far more valuable: eyewitness reports of thriving markets, of powerful horses, and massive untapped wealth. The reports offered the Han court a new strategic direction. Beyond the immediate military need for horses, the emperor saw a path to wealth that justified the massive expense of securing these desert corridors. This shift in imperial policy was the turning point. By opening the frontier to find allies, the Han Dynasty set off a sequence of economic, intellectual, and biological exchanges that created the first direct link between the major centers of human power. The first wave was driven by pure economics, but moving goods meant crossing some of the most brutal terrain on Earth. Caravans leaving China faced the scorching Gobi Desert, only to immediately confront the towering, avalanche-prone peaks of the Tian Shan and Pamir Mountains. This map illustrates the reality of the route. Because of the extreme conditions, merchants almost never loaded up a camel in Beijing and walked it all the way to Rome. Instead, they operated a decentralized relay race. The route was anchored by fortress cities operating as heavy-duty exchange nodes. Places like Samarkand and Bukhara grew wealthy because they were built around middlemen. A merchant would travel a few hundred miles, sell their cargo, and head home. This chart visualizes how that relay system created a profitable economic engine. Every single time a crate of goods changed hands, the new middleman added a markup. By the time an item reached the Mediterranean, its final price was many times higher. The ultimate prize in this system was Chinese silk. The production method was a heavily guarded state secret, meaning Roman aristocrats were paying massive sums for transparent garments they didn't even understand. Some Roman writers even suggested the fabric grew on magical trees. Through this punishing, highly segmented network, silk became a global luxury brand. The demand for it created a tie between the economies of the East and West that would remain for centuries. You can't build thousands of miles of infrastructure just for commerce without other things hitching a ride. Merchants sought shelter in massive, fortified inns called caravanserai. These courtyards forced travelers from a dozen different empires into close quarters every single night. When you put that many languages and cultures in the same room, they talk. Physical goods were joined by technical knowledge. Technologies like paper manufacturing and gunpowder moved slowly westward across the network, eventually changing how governments managed their records and conducted warfare. At the same time, a counterflow of ideology moved eastward. Indian monks and scholars traveled alongside the trade caravans, utilizing the established supply lines to introduce Buddhism deep into China and Central Asia. The physical roads and inns built for profit were co-opted by culture. The trade network became a continental system for transmitting ideas, from religious philosophy to manufacturing secrets. In the 13th century, this system reached its peak of efficiency. The Mongol Empire conquered massive stretches of Asia, and while their campaigns were brutal, their control brought unprecedented security to the trade routes, a period known as the Pax Mongolica. With the bandits eliminated and political borders erased, merchants could cross the vast Eurasian steppe faster than ever before. Explorers like Marco Polo utilized this window of stability to travel all the way from Europe to the court of Kublai Khan. But that frictionless efficiency had a dark side. As humans and animals moved rapidly along these secure corridors, they unknowingly carried microscopic cargo. Fleas living on rats nested deep inside merchant caravans, carrying the bacteria responsible for the bubonic plague. The Black Death rode the trade routes directly from Central Asia into Europe, causing one of the deadliest pandemics in history. The peak of the road's connectivity exposed a vulnerability. The same arteries that moved wealth across the world could also distribute disease. The dominance of the overland routes finally broke under two shifts. First, the Mongol Empire fragmented, bringing political chaos back to the steppe. At the same time, European explorers perfected deep-water navigation and began looking for a direct path to the east by sea. The death blow to the ancient routes came down to simple math. To move a single ton of cargo overland, you had to feed, water, and protect dozens of beasts of burden across hostile terrain. A single ocean-faring ship carried 50 times the cargo at a fraction of the cost. As global commerce shifted to the sea, the wealth dried up inland. The fortress cities and bustling markets that had controlled the world's economy for centuries were bypassed, left to slowly fade into the desert. But the core idea that drove the Silk Road never actually died. The desire to link distant markets evolved from camel caravans into the massive networks of stacked containers crossing our oceans today, and eventually into the fiber optic cables that carry our digital lives. The original overland routes demonstrated a pattern that still defines our world. When infrastructure is built to exchange goods, it inevitably facilitates exchanging art, science, and technology. The merchants who crossed the Gobi Desert established a model of connection that continues to shape our modern existence today.